Please do not adjust your sets. You are not seeing things. Yes, I am wearing the same shirt as I did in yesterday's video. Welcome to the Sports Note on YouTube for Monday, February 28th. I am your host, Jim Crinitti. And my partner on the Wise Guy Sports Show, Mike Martinez, and myself got into a very, at times, heated discussion on this past Saturday's show, not arguing really against this or taking sides with this, but it was definitely something that came up in conversation, and Mike also posted a very, very impassioned, I believe it was about 18-minute video on his personal YouTube channel, so please actually go check out the Wise Guy Show, and then also there will be a link in that to Mike's regular post. But with the ongoing MLB labor dispute, which now is currently in a lockout, going into almost now its third month. The collective bargaining agreement expired back on December the 2nd. They could have done something before Christmas or right after Christmas, and the owners just actually now seem to have this philosophy that they really don't care whether or not games are going to be played or when the season is going to start. This is actually now 2 of the last 3 years that the Major League Baseball season is not going to start on time, unless they actually can come to an agreement by tomorrow's deadline, to where then regular season games are going to start getting canceled because they still need to get spring training in, and the regular season is supposed to be starting on March 31st. Yes, we are technically 1 month away from today for the start of the Major League Baseball season. The problem is nobody knows when the hell that's going to be. The talks between the two sides start to show a little bit of promise, and then all of a sudden you start seeing the reports that the meetings only last 10 minutes, 15 minutes, less than an hour. One side yelling at the other side yelling back, one almost laughing at the other. Both sides are completely frustrated, and Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, is not helping matters really at all. But this is also, it's the which came first, chicken or the egg argument at this particular point. There are a lot of secessions that are going to need to be made by both sides in order to get a deal done. The problem is you can't take baseball seriously without a salary cap anymore, and that's really never going to happen with the way that the current payout structure is in Major League Baseball. The report that came out this time last week that Juan Soto of the Washington Nationals, a 23-year-old outfielder, was offered a $350 million contract, which would eclipse the one that Francisco Lindor got from the New York Mets just a year ago, is ridiculous. This all goes back to the Baltimore Orioles are still paying Chris Davis for that ridiculous contract. The New York Yankees ended up picking up most of Alex Rodriguez's contract when he left the Texas Rangers, and that was the one that really got everything started. The problem is that you actually have to go back to a team very near and dear to my heart, the New York Islanders in the NHL, who really got the ball rolling on this whole thing. The money was not the issue, so to speak, although in hockey terms it can be. But they offered Rick DiPietro, a goaltender that they took #1 overall several years prior, a 15-year, $67.5 million contract. DiPietro only played 5, maybe 6 seasons of that contract, was largely ineffective when he was there, was hurt often, and was nicknamed Rickety DiPietro for again the injury proneness, and was cut 3 years into the latest deal of that, which I believe he was cut in 2013. But it's still the fact that, yeah, there's P.T. Barnum always said there is a sucker born every minute. The problem is that whose idea was it to really come out with these contracts in the first place, considering every time you see one of these signed, it's for such a small body of work that in no way, shape, or form justifies what's being asked. DiPietro was supposed to be the cornerstone to turn the Islanders back into relevance. It turned out the Islanders stunk for a lot of those years. Rodriguez was supposed to have a couple of World Series titles with the Texas Rangers. He ends up going to the Yankees and only wins. He actually had more positive steroid tests or scandals attached to his name than he had World Series titles. He had two suspensions for performance-enhancing drugs and only one World Championship. The fact that Lindor was one of the best players in baseball justifies the amount of money, but the problem is that there's no way that the Mets are going to be able to continue paying Lindor over $20 million, let alone $25 million by the time this contract ends, then in the following decade. He's not going to live up to those numbers. We all see that guys start to fall off when they actually hit their early 30s. There's no way that Lindor is going to be able to keep up with that. Now, granted, the Mets could be primed for the best set of longevity in that division with the Atlanta Braves potentially losing Freddie Freeman once the lockout ends. But who's to say that, again, Lindor's even going to be part of that equation in the future? Could he actually be released with still a lot of that money? Could he be traded in the next 5 or 6 years? Could this contract completely blow up in smoke? This is actually, again, chicken or the egg. The owners are the ones paying out these contracts. The players are the ones asking for these contracts. The players are trying to galvanize their worth really based off of, again, such a small body of work. Sometimes it's usually between a 3 and 5 year period. But the fact of the owners saying we need to go out and spend this money, or we need to find this money to be competitive, that Lindor honestly should have still been playing in Cleveland. They still should have actually been, with their playoff run, the upheaval, the improvements and overtaking of them by the Chicago White Sox should have actually been a few more years down the road, instead of Lindor going off, getting this massive contract, and now the Indians, now Guardians, having to, I don't want to say rebuild, but there's definitely a lot more pieces that they needed to replace now that he's gone than when he was there. Because the Indian/Guardians franchise does not have the money to be able to compete with the New York markets. And yes, the Mets are the little brother to the evil empire, the Yankees, but it doesn't mean to say that they still don't, benefit from the revenue sharing and the fact that they play in that New York metropolitan market to where they have that kind of money to throw out there. But this is actually where Mike and I posted on last night's show that we put the over-under on 3 more weeks of this thing going on. We both took the over because if you look at things out there, and if there's any truth at all to this proposed Soto contract, when the hell are we going to get anything done? When are we going to play baseball? And people are going to start walking away even after the ballparks open. The owners have no problem letting these buildings sit empty, raising ticket prices, making you pay $8-9 for a beer, $6 for a hot dog. Granted, it's out in the summer where more people are inclined to kind of go out and enjoy themselves a little bit more, so people are going to be able to pay those prices, as opposed to the NBA, the NHL, or the NFL, where granted, the NFL is going to make their money hand over fist. There's always going to be somebody for that, but baseball stadiums really have no problem with less than half the attendance showing up for some of these parks, for some of these bottom-dwelling teams. Look at even the Tampa Bay Rays, who were in the World Series a couple of years ago, and Tropicana Field doesn't draw really much of anything even when they were good. Baseball is a very fickle sport, which honestly has a lot of fair weather fans in terms of the casual fan. They're gonna want to walk up and just kind of enjoy a nice calm night out, for something that's not going to break the bank. The only problem is you're not protected from the elements. If you get a breezy night, if you actually get caught in a rain delay or anything like that, with most of the other sports, naturally with the NFL, you're going to be outside, and there's always the chance for inclement weather. Hell, it actually even adds to the game. With basketball and hockey, you're indoors, climate controlled the entire time, even though the NHL is playing on a sheet of ice, and you would think it would be colder. The closer you get to the glass, it actually does a little bit, but it's minimal at best. But let me know what you guys think down below. Even if whether the story about this Soto contract is true or false, when are we going to get a deal done? Who do you put the blame on? And honestly, who is not making this better? Is it the players holding out because they're the ones who asked for this and broke the system, or is it the owners who actually succumb to these high demands for these players anyway? But let me know what you guys think. Like and subscribe if you enjoy. The next Wise Guys Sports Show is going to be on March the 12th, and then the following week we are going to have the first ever four-man panel live draft, NFL mock draft on the Big Rican Show with myself, Alex from Row 7, naturally my co-host Mike, and Willie from the Shakeback Media Group. So we will see you guys soon, and I promise I will be wearing a different shirt in the next episode. I will be at the Cleveland Cavs game tonight, so there will not be any sort of new update coming until probably later on this week. But everybody take care out there, and we will see you soon.